Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast for people who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them, maybe even a little more. Little chair dancing for you, folks. All right. Enough of that. Anyway, everybody, tonight is another Jim. Tonight we're going to be discussing the 2023 dystopian sci-fi flick Jung-E, because after watching Women Talking, Jim and I felt we needed to take a little time before we talked about Women Talking. Here's the log line. Here's the log line for tonight's movie. On an uninhabitable, or close to uninhabitable, 22nd century Earth, the outcome of a civil war hinges on cloning the brain of an elite soldier to create the perfect robot AI mercenary. This South Korean flick was written and directed by Yeon Sang-ho and stars Kang Soo-yeon, Ryu Kyung-soo, and Kim Yun-ju as the eponymous Jung-E. Now for the social nutrition checklist. Would it get a reframe stamp? No, it would not. It wouldn't get a reframe stamp. Is it union made? There is a Korean Federation of Movie Workers Union. It may have been. They've made some significant gains, but I couldn't be 100% sure, so I'm saying no. But does it pass the Bechdel test? It absolutely does. And is it class conscious? You know what? I can't say it's class conscious film, although it's at least maybe it gets close to that line. That's the best I can say right now, folks. Anyway, now with that out of the way, is there any historicity to this thing anymore? No. Not really that kind of movie, it being a sci-fi flick. So with that out of the way, it's time to welcome back my favorite co-host, my only co-host, one of the founders of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. Let's welcome them all, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How you doing, my friend?
Great. Yeah, pretty good. It's, nice to be here and talking about another dystopian movie, but we should append that theme music that you had on to the start of Jung-E. see how that would work out. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty solid idea, Jim.
Yes, thank you.
And you know what? Right off the bat, I have you unmuted.
Oh yeah. Unmuted. Okay,
you
good.
Even get the courtesy of everyone being able to hear you. That's awesome. And I'm thinking, Jim, why don't we actually say hello to everyone in the chat? We got a few folks in there.
Sure. I know you've been setting up the show, but they're currently all planning to meet in Vegas next month,
which is awesome.
Right, and we're in the same room, but anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
It'll be the first Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies chat meetup. Live,
yes, yeah.
But live, truly, in real life. I think that's outstanding. Anyway, first of all, let's say hello to a great friend of the channel, Dragon Movie Guy, who also has passed a couple of milestones. Yes. As far as that goes. And congratulations to you, DMG.
Yes,
all right. And we also have Katie Fowler. 1/3 of
Hey,
the
Katie.
Research Street, Balmoral Street Research were regulars. Great to see you, Katie. And I'm going to assume Mr. Richard L. is floating around somewhere there. But great to see you, Katie.
I think I
And,
saw Richard earlier. Maybe not.
oh, Jelly Duck, Ahmed.
Yes.
Good to see you, man. Here, let's give it an effect. Ahmed.
That's a good one.
All right. So I think with that out of the way, Jim, I got one question, and then we'll get into the spoiler zone.
Certainly.
Why don't you first give us your 2-sentence summary of your opinion of this film, spoiler free.
Sure. A dystopian, futuristic, sort of a battle movie that turns into something that you don't quite expect, perhaps, and revolves around the inner workings of a particular company that deals in robots. So.
What is your take on it?
It kind of, I had to look at the Neil Blomkamp, at which Neil Blomkamp movie it sort of reminded me about, just in terms of the sort of a bit about Elysium kind of, but it was, it turned into something pretty, initially pretty cold, and then it sort of showed its heart later on, which was kind of, I didn't expect it, but it made for an interesting, a little bit of a twist. Not exactly a plot twist, but just sort of a tonal twist.
Yeah. It definitely it made a change. And I think it's a perfect time for us to, whoops, not what I was looking for. Time to move into the spoiler zone, I think. Sorry. The spoiler zone. Anywho.
Whose voice was that?
Whose voice? Whose voice indeed.
One of our many staff members.
Yeah. Oops. Did not want to do that. Okay. Where the heck was I? And I wanted to ask you this, but it looks like the same thing happened to you. It certainly happened for me. Did you have a moment in the film where your idea of the film, but also your opinion of the film turned? And if so, what was that moment?
Yeah, I mean, when it starts off, it drops you right into the action, but it turns out that the action's a kind of a simulation. And I thought, is this going to be about war, or is this going to be about the lead up to war? Like, is the action, genuine action, like taking us somewhere, folks on a mission, that kind of thing? Or is it about sort of the development and the status of particular set of technologies? So pretty quickly, you became aware of the connection to everyone, I think. And so I'd say within the first act, I think I started to think, well, maybe if they're just dealing with development at this point, typically if you're developing something, in a movie like this, that thing breaks out, or you need a chance to make it work. So that's like usual third act stuff. So how about you? Like, was there a sort of a hinge there?
Well, I said there was, and I was going to talk about it. So yes. There's a scene where everything changes. Our lead character, played by, bear with me, my friend, played by Ms. Kang, Ms. Yan. She, it is played by Ms. Kang, Soo Yeon Kang.
Mhm.
She goes to the doctor, and we kind of get in this doctor consult sort of the whole lay of the future land. The idea, not like we already knew, hey, your brain could be uploaded into a computer.
Mm.
But what that really means socially, that there's levels of, let's say,
Mhm.
post body life. One, it's like you're practically human, but you got to be rich. Maybe B, well, there's some restrictions, human rights light. And then
Mhm.
C, well, hey, you should be happy your data is still being used.
Mhm.
Which in our app driven life, where we're renting everything,
Yeah.
is kind of an interesting note. But it is there. And then when the doctor basically folds away because he's one of these
Mhm.
things, and then I'm like, oh, this is not the movie that we were given at the beginning. And
Mhm.
even in some of the marketing, you knew it was going to be sci-fi, and there's this idea floating there, but it isn't until really like a late first act change where you go,
Yeah.
oh, this is sci-fi. There's an implication here. It is not just an excuse to have a bunch of cool action sequences.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, because up to that point, I'm like, well, if I'm going to see this, I don't want something that seems, how can I put this, Jim? Where it seems like it's taking itself too seriously. I'm like, I was kind of hoping for another Space Sweepers. But that
Yeah, we were talking about
moment,
that.
then I'm like, okay, now I'm engaged.
Mhm.
And I think that was the moment where I really became engaged in the character, in who is really the daughter of this woman, Young E, this AI, uh,
Yeah.
played by Kim, well, Hyung Ju Kim, Ms. Kim, where you kind of go, like you start to go, oh my God, this is terrible.
Mhm.
What she's doing to her mother in a way is what could happen to her, which is. So yeah,
Mhm.
that was the moment for me where it was like, oh, I'm not in the movie I thought I was in. And really happy about it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a bad thing, is it?
Yeah.
I think at that point I had written space capitalism. That
Yeah.
was, uh,
Yeah.
not late stage necessarily, but space
Yeah. Well,
capitalism.
it's just again, how late
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
capitalism get to be? um,
Yes.
well, let's go. You know what? Let's jump into craft. I know that was kind of a
Sure.
story question, but maybe take a rewind a bit back into craft.
Mhm.
What did you think of what did you think of the effects, all the CGI? Because it is a heavy CGI movie.
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest I think the biggest victory of the movie, special effects wise, is the robots that were like the army of her mother, like all the clones of Captain Captain Yun or
Yeah,
Jung Yi, it's referred to, and it, at the end we meet some that haven't been completed yet, and it's just their steel frames, but you
yeah,
can still tell from the face that it's the actress who played Jung E, and
yeah,
there's a couple of very important emotional scenes, and that gets totally conveyed uh, by the effects. Like it's
yeah,
pretty seamless.
yeah. You're
Other
right.
other things, there's a couple train, like a sort of a segment on a train,
Yeah.
like a fighting, some conflict. Doesn't look quite as solid, but those
No
figures,
Shang Chi, eh?
yeah, no, those, yeah, exactly, public transit. the unfinished robots, or they were really impressive even towards the end. When you've seen a bunch, it's a very visually filled movie,
Yeah.
and yet you're still sort of going, "Whoo, that's a cool one." That's a good effect.
Yeah. I wonder if some of it is, I suspect it's a soundstage. It's like 100% soundstage movie and a
Mm.
100% green screen, very little built sets.
Yeah.
But I wonder if some of it is the nature, and I put this out to the chat, something about the nature of that kind of design, that kind of production design, really lends itself well to CGI.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I wonder that the close in stuff, I had more, I liked quite more than the long, like the
Uh-huh.
wider angle shots too. So, but yeah, I felt its biggest successes were close up.
Yeah.
The close up, you know,
Oh, yeah. Getting you in the heart.
talking and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But at the same time, you're not like you need the close ups, I think, are effective because they've got something that isn't dumb
hmm
to cut from, to like,
yeah,
okay, now we'll cut in close. But you're already subtly engaged. So when you get close, it's just ramping it up. It's not going from 0 to 60.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
What about speaking of let's talk about the performances and what any standout, what were the performance highlights? Maybe that's a better question to ask.
I really liked. She's not really the lead. I mean, she's the title character, the Jung E.
Yeah,
But I found that
Hyunju Kim, Ms.
yeah,
Kim.
Miss Kim's performance was. I was very compelled by her. I believed her. I believed her as a fighter. I believed her as a mother. I thought her story was the more engaging of the sort of three main characters. I'm going to say, um, the her daughter, the director of the project, she was okay. I always have a
Oh,
there's a little bit
really?
of a yeah. I thought she was okay, but I was more compelled by the Jung E's storyline and just her
I think
presence.
it's Young.
Jung E, yeah.
Yeah,
And so I sort of wish that it leaned a little more heavily on her performance. And then the person that they have to answer to, Kim, Mr. Kim,
yeah. Played
the
by Kyung Soo
Ryu,
Ryu.
Ryu
I hope.
Kyung Soo. Yeah.
I'm open there.
I, you know, he initially he came across. I thought he was kind of funny because he's sort of a little bit inept. Like a lot of these overconfident characters.
Buffoons.
He has trouble reading the room, and then he switched from buffoon to sort of the heavy or the antagonist pretty quickly. And I don't know if I bought that entire stretch. There's something really interesting, I think, in what they were doing with the cast. Is that if you look at it, typically the more serious characters were the two women characters. There's a selection of older military gentlemen that come in and they're very stern and they have like leather
Yeah.
outfits and things like that. But the younger guys are all kind of goofy, and it's almost a switcheroo. Like it's the women in the cast are a lot more mission defined, and so with that, their characters and their acting is a lot more serious than the guys. Like the guys are all kind of jokey, and they're all to a person a little bit inept. And there's that one scene when they're working on sort of a nasty version of the captain, and the guy's like, oh, it's not what it looks like. And the men are very vulnerable in this. The women are just sort of charging ahead with the their projects, and that sort of that informs how they come across on screen. So they're sort of given the meat, I think, of the
Oh,
movie.
absolutely.
Mhm.
I mean, well, it's an interesting film. It was almost like, are we, as we pivot, I believe that's
Mhm.
what I put out on social media, as we pivot to this film, it was like, oh, we're just doing just a different kind of war movie, except with women, and I don't think that's what this is.
Mhm.
It really is rooted in that relationship. Uh, I didn't feel the same way about Ms. Kang's performance. Um, I I got into her and I felt for
Mhm.
her. The more the movie went along, the more I was like drawn into her performance.
Mhm.
You know what? This idea of this woman who's dying and who horrifically it's not I don't think it's ironic, but before the movie was released, the woman who
Yeah.
played Yeon Sang Ho, she died like a
Yeah.
cerebral hemorrhage, just dead.
Yeah.
Um, but this idea of a woman who knows her mortalities, is facing mortality, has all this. I started to feel the weight she had been carrying, and so consistently of expectation, of guilt, of what you owe those who've sacrificed so much for you.
Mhm.
Um, that by the end, that final scene, I got misty.
Oh
It
yeah. Yeah.
emotionally hit me. I got a little water in the eyes, and I felt for her, and I felt for the mother, Young E.
Mhm.
This other kind of life. I felt for her too because she's also got a, you know. And then you have that last little moment with the rubbing cheeks, and I was like, kind of,
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good. That was sort of a lucky cheek rub. I think they called it.
yeah,
At least the subtitles did. But
yeah.
yeah, that was a good signal. That was a good sort of you know internal signal that you pick up on earlier and then later on too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a little of a, oh, wait, just a sec here.
Oh.
Bear with me.
The inaugural.
Let's give DMG another.
But oh, he's gonna like that. He's gonna prepare ahead of time now. Zing, 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 zing.
Hey, everyone in the chat, you get one a show. So bring your best, bring your A game, because if it isn't worthy of a rim shot, it ain't getting it. You get one shot. Where was I? Yeah, and I think that's not just a testament to the storytelling and everything else. It's a testament to her, actually, yeah, her understated performance.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I saw one, like a brief little critic blurb about how lean this was. And it's lean. It is incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only one time where it's almost like, okay, we know we're getting exposition, and then they put a lampshade on it, and it's like, oh, this isn't going to be the rest of the movie, is it? And then they didn't. Like, it was just that one bit of rough patch. Otherwise, this is tight.
Mhm.
Everything we learn after that is motivated. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. There's it's just there's a lot of sort of interesting things going on here too. But yeah, I just felt that there was a little bit of a not quite, and I should mention that there's a chairman character who comes across as goofy, an older man as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a little bit of switcheroo in this, I think, that I found interesting as myself.
Do you think there's also it's always tough. I was thinking about this. You've got the both players are just a joke. The old man and the robot version of him, the chairman and his robot son, and you can almost see where they're looking at these. This was the first version, and Jung Yi is like a much later, much more advanced version. So you've got memories of, familial connections and all that stuff. Whereas Jung Yi, and she obviously knows or do you think she knows he's a robot?
Yeah.
No, I think that's a reveal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because
it is a reveal to her. Yeah. And then she's like, what? And he's like,
yeah.
ha ha ha. Joke.
He doesn't even know. So
yeah, he's unaware of it.
And that,
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's a little bit of a potential pitfall with a lot of these "Who's a Robot" movies, because in Battlestar Galactica, everyone's a Cylon by the end.
Oh.
You don't need, like in the newer one, like
Yeah.
Year 6 is like, oh, I cut my hand. What? And I'm kidding about everyone, but so many of the cast.
It just seemed to be.
Who else is a Cylon now?
Well, almost
as good as
like
the first few seasons were.
They've got nothing. How do we write our way out of this jam? Time travel, or actually, they've always been a robot.
Yeah. Always been a robot. Oh, they're father and son, or they're actually brothers, or there's some familial connection.
Everybody's going soap opera.
Yes, yeah. Twin. Yeah.
An evil twin.
I've got amnesia.
This is another, as far as the story goes, and we'll get into meaning in a minute, but how often did you think of other films, including the movie we just watched? Like, one of the questions I was kind of curious about from last week is, well, they're at least giving an answer here. What is worthy of life? What is a human being? What really makes us human? There's at least in a tight 100 minutes, they seem to give us we're getting the director's ideas on that. But I did. Now, I think DMG was being a bit of a smartass in the chat, but I'm sure he was also being serious. I thought of it. I thought of it. I thought of Ex Machina. I thought of Blade Runner. I thought of could have been there's sometimes like Futurama did that.
Yeah. Some of the works of Mr. Neil Blomkamp, as well.
Mm-hmm.
District 9.
Yeah, I forgot that one. It was you had District 9, Elysium, but it was the third one I was thinking of.
Chappie,
that's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's sort of typical. Like I often think of when I'm watching a movie, I'm like, this reminds me of this. This reminds me of that. So it's kind of natural, but which
there's only so many things you can do with a robot,
Yeah. But boy, there's a lot of science fiction. As I mentioned last week, there's so much science fiction out there these days. But
and
a couple
good science fiction. No, you go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we're there. It's an embarrassment of riches. Is this more message or story? I might leave that for message. I have a couple little points that I wanted to bring up. Well, one of them is at the end, sort of might straddle a little bit. At the end, it turns out that this war of the moon or the moons or the colonies outside of Earth is gearing down. It looks like there's some sort of peace.
Everyone's getting tired of it.
Everyone's getting tired of it. It's been 40 years. And so what happens is
which is darkly hilarious.
Yeah, like that's I've had it.
Yeah.
And they're gonna ramp everything down, which makes consequences for the main character and her project involving what's left of her mom, or what the spirit of her mom that's being put into these robots. and that's seen as a it's funny because an upcoming peace is sort of seen as a bad thing, and I think maybe it's the fear of what's next, wither me when I'm not at war, and so I was wondering if that struck you as being an interesting aspect of it. Is like it's almost like some of the characters were afraid of the peace
Yeah.
and the changes that it might bring.
Well,
Did you
I
pick
mean,
up on
there's a
that at all, or
few.
did that?
I do. I think Ryu's character, Mr. Kim, the director, he was certainly, experiencing ennui.
Yes, yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah,
super depressed, even as childish and cruel as he could be. That he was at the end, like I even felt for him. Although, I don't think it is a story point. They're going to present to the director, then the woman who's in charge of the new division of product development, blah blah blah. And it's a heavy foreshadow, and it's where I can't say I was shocked when we find out he's a robot, because it seems to be really like heavy foreshadowing when she's just out and out laughing at him.
yeah,
And that's just like him, like she knows the chairman. And yeah, you're just product, and something worthy of ridicule, public ridicule. And I thought that was it was a weird scene. But at the same time, it was also like, it wasn't perfect, but it was at the right place. Like, could it have been handled better? Probably, but it also kind of went to some of the themes I think they're looking at, because I did feel a little bad for him,
yeah.
you know?
And it was immediate. Like, it was just like,
Yeah.
oh, she was smirking at him,
Oh,
as
yeah.
coming down the hallway with her flunkies behind her. And
Yeah.
The-
And I'm not sure it was as big a thing when you were in Asia, Jim, but when I was there in 2015, 2014, I couldn't believe the number of ads where of the Crystal White, just the white makeup, like right out of a Peking theater, and that character looked that way. And then I was looking at pictures, both of Ms. Kang and Ms. Kim online. And yeah, they've got it, because that is the fashion of the time, in Korean, for that white, that really like porcelain white. Whereas here in the film, especially for Kim Hyun-joo, she looks like you'd imagine. Yeah, that color, that natural Asia, like that part of Asia. Asia's a big continent, but that part of Southeast Asia. Whereas this character laughing at them looks a lot more fashionable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that. That's interesting.
Yeah. And honestly, I think part of it was only afterwards when I was looking up some of these players, and it was like, hey, and that's like, and this makes me think. But, and that kind of goes back to, and maybe though, some of these moments, you and I aren't reading well, because we're just not, we're this may shock you, may shock everyone out in the chat. We're not Korean.
Yeah, a lot of the communication too, especially when when Ryu's character, Kim, the sort of the man in charge of the project, or the overseer,
In charge,
the young guy, he's interacting with the military guy guys, and it's so it's almost ceremonial, the way that they're talking to each other, and there's varying degrees of formal language you're supposed to use in those situations, and he's sort of eschewing them a little bit. Again, not reading the room, and I bet you there's tons of stuff in there that we probably didn't really
Yeah.
pick up on. I mean, there's different ways of politeness to say thanks. You can say dozo, dozo arigato, dozo arigato gozaimasu. You know, the whole thing in Japanese, and it's all socially, you know, depending on what the situation is socially. So, you know, I guarantee there's stuff we missed, but I mean, I think the gist of it came through.
Yeah.
That he was sort of being
Yeah, I'm
slightly
just wondering.
inappropriate.
Yeah, I'm just kind of. I'm curious
Yeah.
now of the subtleties of some of the moments in here that maybe we just missed.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Is anything else you want to say before we kind of get into the point of the piece?
Yeah, there was one, and this is probably me just reading into it. My wife and I often talk about when we're talking about these things. It's not a daily thing, but if we see something about Russia and you see how many women scientists there used to be, and you talk about China and how involved the women used to be, and there at some point these societies, and I'm not an expert in this subject, at some points these societies, when they get into some form of perestroika or capitalism or what have you, the opportunities for women seem to melt a little bit, or even World War II. You know, at the end of World War II,
I think we
all
are
of a
in the
sudden-
meaning. Continue.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
This is me reading into it a bit, I think.
No,
but
no,
all of a sudden the women weren't needed at Bletchley Park, you know, the code breaking headquarters.
Okay,
And
bye-bye.
They weren't. Yeah, exactly. Don't talk about it forever. Thank you. Or, you know, away from the munitions plants, you know, all of a sudden there was like, you know, go back to the kitchen in a way. And there's that one scene when Yun, the scientist Yun, walks in on one of the workers, and he's working on turning her mother into a sex robot, which thankfully is a short scene.
Yeah.
But it sort of was, yeah, that was kind of that was a bit of an arrow to the heart. That was hard to see because all of a sudden her worth, you know, as a soldier, now that the war was over, she wasn't necessarily needed. So of course they turned her into a sort of a sex object. And he said, you know, he was very embarrassed, but he didn't want her to see this. And I thought that was it was a short scene, but I thought it was very, very kind of telling and kind of very tragic as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what I mean. Like everything has a logical. It's at the right place, and it does say it's a perfect overlap scene because it's got so much meaning. It's saying a lot. This movie is, which is why I'm like, is it class conscious? No, but it knows what capitalism is, and it's not necessarily a fan.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about this specific scene, also, I thought about it. That idea that commodification.
Yeah.
But also that thing that motivates. Her name again. Damn it.
Yeah, I know. I'm having
Motivating. Well, fudge. Sorry, folks.
not Jung Yi, but Yun.
Ms. Yun the younger. Ms. Kang's performance as her, because that's a big part of the motivation. Like up to this point, in a lot of ways, she's been part of the torture of her. And she's been too afraid to ask her what she really wants to ask her. I think it's part of the character's motivation to be around and to be doing this. It's just wondering if she can spark something in her to say, am I the reason you died? Did you regret helping me? What any child would maybe want to know, those hanging, terrible questions, if your parents made the ultimate sacrifice for your life. Did the parent think it was worth it? And she can't quite ask her, which I think is part of what motivating her torture of her is maybe something will happen. But there's that moment where it's like, I got to do something because it is my mother. Like the way she covers her up. It was just, really, really like hit to me. And this is where it just, the serious as the situation really moves up. But yeah, also it's a great comment on, the commodification of these people. You're a hero, so we're going to turn you into a toy. Well, people who played with this toy grow up, and then they want to play with it in a different way.
Yes.
And so that idea of celebrity and a celebrity player being a celebrity being a subject of abuse, even if it's not their corporeal, physical, that they become property of the public, and therefore, and
there,
so
I was just going to say, just to add to this, isn't there a line where there's some sort of counselor when they figure out that Captain Yun has been horribly wounded? She's consoling the young girl, brings her a doll, and says, "She's everybody's superhero now," or something. She's a superhero now.
We're gonna make her.
Hero now.
We're gonna make her a superhero for everyone. Yeah.
Implying it's maybe it's her mom isn't her property anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Apparently her mother, her grandmother, just gave her up.
Yeah.
But and again, that power of it's not just the state, the corporation, to say, who's going to make sure the child gets educated? Who? We can make that all go away. Just sign here, and that is horrific,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's any of the Korean movies we've watched or talked about have a really kind of a dark view of this stuff.
Yeah. We should mention, I don't think we had, that the director of this directed Train to Busan as well. So yeah, there you go. Different, I think a little bit of a different pathway on that one, but yeah. Still not a gentle movie.
No. Yeah. Well, you could say this one was a lot kinder to us as far as gore and
that's true.
Horror goes. Yeah. Let me ask you this. We kind of touched on the capitalism stuff. What else do you think the director wants us to take away from this movie?
I think what was kind of interesting was the scene that you're talking about with the doctor when they're saying, and the funny thing is too, a little bit of humor injected into this is like, it's just death. We can implant you into another thing.
Yeah.
Like it's no big deal. But when he's reading out,
if you have the money, of class
levels,
C, yeah.
The C, the B, and the A. Oh, the A is first, and that you have autonomy. You're good. You have to be able to afford it.
You're a human.
Yeah.
In a as they said, it's a prosthetic body. It's Continue. Sorry, Jim.
But I think with B, he starts. The aspects of your sense of self start getting whittled away a little bit.
Yeah.
You're exposed to the great database. I think they say that something that you can be subject to, not inspection, but your thoughts aren't strictly your own. Like they can be monitored by other people. And then C is just you're basically a husk, and we're allowing you to stay, which is what the mom with the Captain Jung had was, which is why they were able to sort of mass produce her.
You are ours now.
Yes.
Not your stuff, but you. You that which makes you is now a property of ABC Inc. You are the ultimate commodification.
Yeah.
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 Uh,
So that's kind of interesting, and that's in its own way. The doctor was very matter of fact, like I guess
yeah.
robots will be, but
Well, but
that
that's the
one
thing.
needs
Like,
some
what was
unpacking.
he? That's all I
Yeah.
mean, it's like he is he a bee guy?
Mm.
Is he a
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't think he was just a robot. I think he was one of
Robot.
these went through a transition.
Mm.
Obviously not A.
Yeah.
Don't think he was C though. I think he was
Mm-hmm.
like you're seeing the results of a B transition. You know,
Yeah.
you're just you're not having kids. You're not gonna your ability to adopt, and it's like you're just gonna be you're plugged into your tools now.
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
if all you ever really liked being was a doctor, then maybe you're okay with that.
Well, then,
In
yeah.
part because you couldn't make the money. Again, another circle back to capitalism.
You have to think about sanity too, because there's no end date with this, right?
Oh,
You don't work till you're a 65-year-old robot. I mean, you just keep going until
well, until
something happens. There's a
some power of the bee deletes you,
Yeah,
some
yeah,
catastrophe, uh, which brings me to my question. What do you think? I mean, I certainly have an opinion on this, which I'll share.
sure.
But I wanted to know first from you. What do you think the director, what do you think his take is on AI sentience, the soul of an AI?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I would, you sort of want to avoid any kind of. It's just so easy to say, oh, it's a cautionary tale, but I think,
Well, I
yeah,
think part of it, it's you can say it's a cautionary tale. You got to go. It's the follow through. It's well, cautioning us on what?
yeah, yeah,
You know,
that's true. Um, yeah, what does he think of AI? I think he thinks that there's ramifications. Like it's not all free and clear. It's not a sort of a solution to death. Which is what the doctor, for instance, thinks. Your body's going to die, but you're going to live. Like it ultimately, maybe what is a life? You have to start thinking about it a
I
little
think
bit.
that's like maybe I got to reframe the question.
Hmm.
I mean, what's interesting within the film, there's multiple kind of statements on it. The old man says, "Yeah," and then when I made him, but he's not me. He's just
Hmm.
a toy. Like you get this idea. It's like he is not going to after he dies. He's gonna die. He
Hmm.
does not see that as a path to immortality.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, whereas the daughter definitely sees her mother. And in the yellow spot within the brain, that part where that gave her the will to fight again in the one scenario where she fights
yeah.
again is obvious because she was reminded, I must fight for my daughter. My little girl is out there. And I suspect, or at least this is what I'm taking from it, he is making a case for the fact that these AI, if they're that close a copy that it from the AI's perspective, their experience is indistinguishable from ours,
Hmm.
then it should be free. Just as the
Yeah,
daughter sets the mother, this the soul of the mother, let's say, for lack of a
hmm,
better phrase,
yeah,
but that she sets her free, that she sacrifices herself, much as the mother did for her.
yeah,
This exchange, it kind of says, I think, at least, not just from that character, but maybe from the film's perspective, unlike looking at them as soulless machines, that it's like, no, there's ones where it's like, this person has the right to go live their life, not being subjugated to well, you know what? We're just going to put you in another machine and do this all again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And that too is another switcheroo that sort of goes against maybe some of the what you'd see in a Hollywood movie is that the daughter sacrifice, the mortally ill daughter sacrificing herself for the mother is typically you'd see it the other way around too. So that's another sort of a neat switcheroo that we have here. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so the final shot, of course, is just the mom robot looking over the landscape and
Wither.
yeah,
How
yeah.
did you put it? Wither me, wither go me.
Wither me. Who am I without war? Who am
Yeah.
I without conflict?
Yeah.
Who
yeah.
am I with a steel body or what have you? And some of the imagery too was like just her trunk and a couple of little arm joints.
Yeah.
And she waking up and she's like, "Who are you people?" Like that's
Well, and
kinda
her
horrifying.
horror at going, what have you done to me?
yeah.
You know? Yeah, no, there's a kind of body horror thing going on here. I
Yeah,
love the
we've seen that a
thing.
lot lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, the dark Canadian winter brings us.
Great
Although
start
the
to the
weather's
year.
been really good lately, so
Yeah,
what am I whining about?
yeah.
Jim, I think it is time to move forward. But before we
Sure.
do, why don't do you want to? How about you tell us what we're going to be watching next week?
Sure. We are going to go with a new release on Netflix, something Norwegian called Narvik. It's a war movie about the early days of World War II, and a nice wintry one as well, if you're if you're so inclined. Starting with a thing this month, ending with Narvik. No apologies.
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, after that, we've got, we're really excited about our Does It Hold Up movie, an actual suggestion from one of the regular chatters. But we'll hold on we'll hold on that announcement until next week.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Jim, let me ask you, see it or skip it? Let me rephrase that. Let me get this right.
Sure.
Is young E, see it or skip it?
See it. I'd say see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a solid sci-fi film. It's got a couple of nice action moments. It's not an action movie,
No.
but it is a solid science fiction movie. Like you said, yeah, we're an embarrassment of riches on actual science fiction where they actually have an idea. They're taking something that we're starting to see now and go, well, what if it had played out this way? And that's kind of exciting. And especially from a different cultural sensibility, gives you a
Yes,
different
yeah.
angle on it and that. So yeah, I couldn't agree. Why don't you give us your final thoughts, my friend?
Sure. Well, after talking about it, and I thought it was pretty jam packed with stuff when I watched it yesterday, but I sort of appreciated even more after talking about it with you. We didn't, just for everyone out there, we didn't really discuss what we thought about it until we got on live here. So, yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was a pretty interesting movie, very thought provoking in a lot of ways. And you're always when you're watching something foreign, you're watching new people. You're maybe watching a director you're unfamiliar with. Well, I had seen Train to Busan, but actors that you may not know about, and yeah. So it's like, again, good to watch. Good to watch foreign movies. How many Korean science fiction movies have I watched now?
Two,
maybe
three.
you can count them on one. Well, does Train to Busan count?
Yeah, I guess
Is
it'd
that
be
zombie.
It's got a.
Science
I think
fiction?
those are horror sci-fi.
Yeah,
And
Space Sweepers.
yeah, Space Sweepers definitely.
Yeah,
I really want to see a Space Sweepers like film. Although interestingly enough, Jim, you know what is coming out tonight? This month, being released globally, not just in China. The Wandering Earth 2.
2. Oh, yikes!
crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's
I,
what stories didn't they? What questions didn't they answer last time?
here's one more
It's been a
question
while.
for you:
Sure.
subs or dubs?
Oh, subs. Yeah, I can't deal with dub. Yeah, we tried watching that Let the Right One In dubbed. It was like, you are a vampire, I tell you, and it just it just falls flat, and it always sounds like an SCTV version of a foreign movie. So I can't. Yeah, I go with the subtitles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How about
no,
you?
I'm with you. I
I
want to
figured.
hear
Yeah.
the original performer's emotion and their
Yeah.
tone. I want to hear their tone. I
Mhm.
want to hear that. And that said, you know what? Netflix does a pretty good job of dubbing. So
Mhm.
maybe one of these, who knows? Maybe Narvik might be easier. And that's the other thing is, I think hearing like North American English or even British English, when you've got an Asian cast, would just throw me off too much. I
Yeah.
would have a hard time being in the movie. Ho ho ho! Look at this, Cody.
Oh yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
And
Really
congrats, Cody.
big congrats. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? We deserve. He deserves
Uh-oh.
more than just a bit of big congrats. He deserves.
Whoa. Listen
That's what
good.
Cody deserves.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, so hold on. Cody got 1,000, and did DMG get 1,000 as well?
No, he broke 500. Sorry about that.
500. Okay,
He broke
still pretty good.
500 a while ago, and he's moving up as well. So
Both
we're
commendable.
bringing up the rear.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know what, given the nature of our channel, Jim, I think we're doing just fine.
Mhm.
But yeah, that takes. I mean, given how proud I am of what we've done, I can only imagine how Cody's feeling right now because
Yeah,
1,000, that's a big milestone for a
that's awesome.
YouTuber, especially in the movie space where it's so competitive.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, congratulations, Cody, and thanks for popping in. Really appreciate that,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
What do we got here? He's asking us, are you guys checking out Pathan or Infinity Pool this coming week? Neither. We just we're gonna do Narvik, the Narvik, Hitler's first defeat, a Norwegian film. That's what we're doing for next week. But I gotta admit, I'm kind of interested. I'm not sure about Pathan, but Infinity Pool, I'm kind of interested in. So who knows? The other thing we've got coming up, Jim, is Oscars noms
Yes, yeah.
Tuesday. Is there anyone you're particularly pulling for?
Yeah, well,
Heck, we've actually
I
seen a lot of movies this year
we
that are
have, yeah.
in contention
And
or,
there's still time to
potential.
catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be still some time to catch. I haven't watched many of the animated movies, but Women Talking, it'd be nice to see some nods there. I recently
Everything
saw
Everywhere All at Once. I'd love to
Yes,
see
yeah.
some
After
action go that way.
Yang,
Yeah.
it was a good watch. We didn't review it on this channel,
No,
but my
that
wife
doesn't
and I
mean we
watched that.
can't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, no, it just it's always fun to see.
The Fablemans. Although I don't think that's.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm pulling for. Will Spielberg get some recognition?
yeah, yeah. Let's say everywhere, everything, all at once. It'd be nice to see them
Yeah.
get some love.
Yeah.
But
And I
yeah,
agree
we'll
with you
find
about
out.
Women Talking. Speaking of which, folks, we do have somewhere up here, there'll be a card to our See It or Skip It review. Jim and I did the other night. We went and caught the flick, and then we hung out in an actual Tim Hortons and did
Inside.
our review inside. Sat in a booth kind of thing. It was
With a
crazy.
bunch of menacing, giggling teenagers. So
Yeah.
might-
And they weren't even making that much noise.
No, they were pretty good actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've both been there where you're long finished your drinks and you're just sitting around. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. That was what were we saying? Some of the stuff and how they were swearing and everything. And it's not like we did anything different.
No,
And
no.
yet now we're that
The Bay Coffee Shop comes to mind.
Yes.
All those years ago.
Many years ago. The group at the Bay. Coffee at the Bay.
Yes.
All right. I think that's about it for us, Jim.
Sounds good.
Want to say once again, thanks everyone for coming. Down here you'll be able to subscribe. I think over this way I will put a link to our review of Women Talking, and then this way will be something YouTube wants you to watch. So anyway, goodbye everybody.
Happy viewing.